Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Over the past few months, Poland's mood towards the European Union has shifted in a way few expected. Support for leaving the European Union has climbed to around 25%, and that's quite a dramatic jump for a country long seen as one of the EU's most enthusiastic members. But now, what's behind this change in sentiment? Is it politics, economics, frustration, or something deeper about Poland's place in Europe? Well, to help us unpack what's going on, with me in studio is Dominika Ziętara, lawyer, expert in analysis and strategy department at the Ministry of Justice. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with us here.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation.
On World Talks. All right, Dominika. So I'm not sure how to look at this broader picture. Now, why do you think that we're suddenly seeing this shift in a quarter of Poles warming up to the idea of actually leaving the EU when not long ago, support for being part of the bloc was almost unanimous?
First of all, it's very important to stress that still the majority of the people wants to stay in the EU. But we should be very worried about the latest poll. It shows us that the number of people who wants to leave is actually increasing, and it's increasing very much. I think it's very important to say that EU makes a lot for us, and in Poland this is a huge step forward for the people in over the past 20 years. And it's also very stressful because we just finished half a year ago the presidency in the Council of the EU. So Poland promoted the idea of standing in the European Union, was the big player in EU during that time. But what's important, EU is a little bit far from the people. I think it's also a thing about communication, because in times of very emotional and straight communication, the technocratic language of the EU might be a little bit difficult for people to understand.
Like what? What do you mean? Like, give us an example.
Example is, all the legislation acts that are presented in the EU. This is a very specific law language that normal people just do not understand. And I think that we do not promote those ideas for the people, very, in common way.
You're talking about laws and, communication language, but what about security? Do you think that could be a driving force? We're really next door to a country that's completely war-torn. I don't know, many Poles think that, war is inevitable. Yeah. I know we don't want to go there, but is that, let me ask you about security. Do you think that leaving the EU fits in those security concerns about these Poland's tensions with Russia?
What we are saying, that Polish government right now is saying that in the EU we need to have the strong voice at the table, because being out of the EU means you're not in the room during the conversation. So we need to stay strong, and we need to present our goals, and we need to present what's driving us to stay secure in the EU.
Which is, what can you tell us about that?
Which is, we need to talk with the big countries, and we need to support the ideas that EU is driving to stay secure in Poland.
Look, I'm holding here of support for leaving the European Union. Following France, which is at 27%, here Poland is at 25%, and we're seeing the graphic on the screen right now. And a further 19% of average. Again, I know I'm going to go back into it, but it's quite shocking to see that Poland remains the second one, following France, and into this about wanting to leave the European Union. How do you think that supporters of, if we can call it Polexit, right, argue that Poland would benefit from leaving the EU?
You mean, look,
to benefit from it? Yeah, like what good could they see from leaving the EU?
I don't feel like there's anything good about leaving the EU, because, this is like, EU is a huge market. This is we are working with the big empires like United States, Russia. Yeah, these are the threats from the Russia side. And only if we are bigger together and working together, we can, stop this.
And how do you think that, studies show that Brexit, cost, of course, the United Kingdom quite a lot of its GDP. If Poland were to take a similar path, and actually I'm giving you a worst case scenario, and were to leave, right, the EU, what kind of impact would we see on growth and on the country itself?
We need to remember that Great Britain was the country that was stronger before. Poland is one of those countries that benefited a lot from the EU, from the funds, and this is actually what people see, that the funds from the EU are helping us, that, for example, the rural areas that were, emerging a lot, and everything changed. So this is a very pros from this.
Do you think that politicians in Poland are actually amplifying anti-EU sentiment for electoral gains, or what have we seen evolve since this presidency, or particularly maybe since Karol Nawrocki became president? Do we see a big difference compared to when Andrzej Duda was president?
We see a very anti-EU rhetoric from different sides of the political scene. Actually, it's the right side and the far right side, yeah? The president is not helping a lot. We can recall his speech during the Independence Day in Poland, when he was actually undermining the EU's role in Poland. So I think that the work that government does, that the Prime Minister Donald Tusk's government does, is very important, but it's not supported by the president. It's very difficult.
Speaking of, you did mention Donald Tusk. There was a tit for tat and spat between online, between Elon Musk, between Radosław Sikorski and Donald Tusk, right? Where Elon Musk said that Europe should completely be over, right? And Donald Tusk said, well, hey, Europe is actually your ally. What do you make out of this?
I feel like the strength of Prime Minister Donald Tusk and the Vice Prime Minister Radosław Sikorski is very strong, and I think that they, in Europe we need to secure our interests, not care about the United States.
And what about, from your perspective, do you think that what are the changes that the EU could do? I know you spoke about earlier about these regulations and these laws. Are there things that the EU could change to make Poles more, let me use an easy word, happier to stay in, to shift away from this thought of wanting to leave the EU and being less, Eurosceptic?
I want to come back to this communication issue again, because what I said at the beginning is that EU and the European parliamentarians are not so close to the people. I think they should make much work, to go to the locals, to talk to them, to show how much EU has done, especially about the funds. We can see them on some news, but we don't see them very much on a daily basis. I think it's worth to still underline that what we gained from the EU.
And how big of a role, let's talk about social media, right? How big of a role do you think social media campaigns, online campaigns, possibly even information or disinformation play in this perspective that Poles want to leave the European Union?
Yes, so actually the disinformation and those threats that are causing the elements of the hybrid war, actually, this is very dangerous. And I think this is a huge work for the government and for EU to deal with it. And, to create some new solutions for the fact-checking and, to close this disinformation process.
A decade from now, I know it's a little bit difficult, of course, to predict, but a decade from now, going the way that you see Poland evolving and moving forward, how do you think the scenario will look like in the country? A little of a Brexit situation, or with strong ties? How do you, within the European Union?
I still believe that we can be one of the leaders in EU, and I still believe that we can, share the idea that EU integration is very important, especially that we have the history, which is very difficult. We have, the memory of the solidarity movement, and I think that EU is the new solidarity that we need to share in the new world.
Thank you so much, Dominika Ziętara, expert lawyer in Analysis and Strategy Department, for being with us here on World Talks this morning.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching here, World Talks. I'm Diana Skaya. Stay with us for more news and analysis. Up next.